Hi guys, it's Phil from Battle Bunnies, and today we're going to be looking at Goliath Maulers. Just love that new box smell. I think it's really cool. Let's have a look. It's always worth having a read through the instructions before you start any project. It gives you an idea of how easy the models are to build, whether they can be built in sub-assemblies for painting, and also for any conversion ideas that you might have if you want to use them in any other factions, or for example if you want to use these in 40k, possibly for an orc faction. These things look absolutely brutal. And as you can see from these, they look really simple to put together. The rider himself is completely separate, so you can paint him individually, or if you want to, leave him off and slap an orc on there. The good thing is about this Necromunda stuff is it really lends itself to the orc faction. It's quite rough and ready. Personally, I'll be using these in my Goliath gang because these things, as I said before, look absolutely brutal. I'm going to enjoy mowing down many a different gang. I love the artwork on this box and the aesthetics of the models themselves. It's a real nod to the first edition Necromunda Goliath gangs, but also it's worth noting that the bikes themselves, although they look individual, are actually built from the same sprue. In the box you get two identical sprues, and from that you can build either option of bike, and I would assume that you get certain parts left over, which could lend themselves in future. If you've got maybe 2 or 3 boxes of these, you could possibly build yourself some sort of mega mauler that you could create rules for and further terrorize your enemies with. So without further ado, I'm actually going to cut these guys off of the frame now and build the 2 various options. I'll let you know how simple these guys are to put together. From what I can see from the instruction booklet themselves, they really do look like there's very few ways that I can muck it up, and yeah, we'll see how we get on. So here we have the finished bike itself. This rider here, he's just attached. He doesn't glue in. It's worth noting that the actual hands of the rider are attached permanently to the handlebars. So when you mount your Goliath ganger on there, you really need to make sure that the handlebars themselves line up with how you've glued the arms in place. It's a pretty good fit, so you don't really need to worry too much about it, but it's just worth making a note of. Likewise, as is down here, there's, I don't know if you can see it, but there's 2 little indents that come off this handlebar section, and basically this whole frame section here, where the wheel arch meets the actual bike itself, if you don't have this handlebar section in place, you can get a slight pivot with the actual bike and the frame itself, which then means that the bike itself wouldn't sit level. This one doesn't actually sit level because of the studs in the tires, but this one here, as you can see, it's rock solid, it doesn't rock about. I didn't actually notice this part until I'd actually glued this section in, and then I kind of had to bend it apart to get this section in. So that's worth taking attention to. These parts here, they're the backrests and the headrests for the bikes. Obviously I'm not going to put these on until I've glued the riders in place after I've painted them. One thing that I did notice the Mega Mauler is kind of a dead idea in its tracks, unless you actually buy a box dedicated to actually do the Mega Mauler. These here are literally the only leftover parts that you get within the kit. There's, you know, half a dozen heads, a couple of head pieces, the tyre section for this part of the wheel. You actually need this part to build this part here. So, you know, whereas I was thinking you probably got, you know, a couple of these grinder wheels and a couple of the tyres left over, you don't actually get anything, you just get the two tyres. So if you did want to make a Mega Mauler, chances are you're going to have to buy a whole new kit. The guns themselves come in a couple of parts. The bolters are a single piece. I don't know what gun this is, stubber possibly, that has its own drum feed there, and obviously they just glue onto the side of the bikes. So pretty standard kit to put together, pretty easy to do. Okay, so it's time to get some paint on these models. To begin with, we're going to give an overall full dry brush of Lead Belcher by Games Workshop. That's going to cover the entire model. The reason we do that is it makes the model itself easier to read. You can pick out all the little bits of details, etc, etc. From there you'll know where to place your highlights and your base colours. Following that, we're going to give it a dry brush of Necron Compound, and we're going to do that on the raised areas of the blades, anywhere that's going to have a lot of wear and tear on it. So the tracks section, the guards, the foot plates, possibly the handlebars, and definitely on the actual spikes of the bike itself. Okay, so we'll see in the next bit. Okay, with those base coats completed, it's now on to the next stage. We are going to be painting the side fairings and the bridge here in Bad Moon Yellow contrast paint. I'm going for an old school Games Workshop early 90s bright colourful vibe on these guys, so this will be the ideal colour to use. Okay, so that dry brush has really brought out the details on the model. For the next step, I'm going to be base coating the red areas in Mephiston Red, followed by the black areas in Abaddon Black. And then for the leather seats, I will be base coating them in Wraithbone, so that I can then go over them with the contrast paint. Okay, I'll catch you in the next bit. Okay, so we've applied the snakebite leather to the seats, and whilst that's drying, we're going to start work on the hazard striping. It's worth picking a point on the actual vehicle itself that you're going to take the hazard stripes from. Pick a point, put in the first stripe, and then work from there. It's worth paying attention to being ultra neat at this point, because obviously it's very difficult to go back and correct your mistakes. So I'm going to pick the center point of the bridge here, and take it back downwards towards the grenade launcher on the bike itself. Once you get the stripe to about the thickness that you want, you can then go through, add a little bit more water to make the paint flow easier. You can go through and then tidy up the stripe that you're working on. Just make sure to try and keep it even on both sides, like that. So here we are with the hazard stripes finished. Don't be too disheartened if you can't get the hazard stripes looking 100% perfect. It is Necromunda after all, and you know the gangs aren't well known for having loads of money to pimp out their rides. So what you can do is, if you do make mistakes or it's not 100% to your liking, you can put in little micro scratches actually on the hazard stripes themselves where you're not 100% comfortable with the neatness of the actual stripe. So it just represents a bit of paint chipping off here and there, like that. And obviously if you're going to do some markings like that, it's also worth just putting in some little additional chips here and there. You can probably do the same with a sponge and some stone chipping, for example, and it just looks like the paint has been scratched off in those areas. Okay, so the scratches and dings have been put onto the yellow, just to give it that weathered look, and obviously sometimes where the lines aren't perfectly straight, you can actually make a feature of it. So the next stage we're going to do is we're going to do some edge highlighting on the red, and for that we are going to be using Games Workshop's Wild Rider Red. It's a nice orangey red, so it will lend itself to that early 90s retro feel that I'm going for. Again, we want to start applying these highlights just on the edges here, going around the sides of the bike itself and on the tops and sides of the vents. On to the next stage. So we've done the edge highlighting of all the reds, tidied up and put a few more dings on the hazard stripes. So my next stage is going to be painting in some of the details. I'm going to base coat the dials in white before attempting to put little marks on around the speedometer. I will be painting these parts in Runefang steel. It's the closest GW do to a chromy metallic that I've found. So these guys need to be all shiny and chrome. So the back part there, the handlebars, the engine cover, I may even do a few edge highlights just to make them really stand out. Then I'm going to base coat the hands in Wraithbone again, because I will probably be using Gilliman Flesh contrast paint for the riders when I come around to do the riders. The next stage I'm going to do is also add some edge highlighting to the black calipers, and for that I'm going to be using Incubi Darkness. So we'll see how that looks in a second. So with that stage complete, here is the model so far. As you can see, we've got some little details in the speedometer and rev counter. We've base coated the hands in a Wraithbone. I have painted snakebite leather onto the leather arm guard, not arm guard but headrest, and I think that's pretty much the bike done without weathering. So we will look at weathering the bike once the riders are on there, putting some scratches into the leather, maybe toning this leather down a bit, adding some corrosion on the copper, some dirt into the blades, also some dirt into each of the little crevices. But weathering's the fun stage when it comes to any model. If you've seen any of my other stuff, I always kind of heavily weather my Titans and tanks and my troops. So yeah, onto the riders. So with the riders here, what we're actually going to do is give them an all over dry brush of grey, followed by an all over dry brush of white. That will allow us to pick up the details of where everything needs to be. Then I will do a base coat of Wraithbone on the arms, head, and that's pretty much it for these. Then obviously we will do the shoulder pads in the same way that we did the cowls for the tracks and the calipers, which is base of Mephiston red highlighted up with Wild Rider red. And on the jeans I'm going to go and do something that I've never actually tried before. So with these I'm going to stipple on some white patches and then give it an all over glaze using some kind of contrast blue. I haven't decided which one just yet, and obviously when I get to that I'll let you know what we do, and I'll try and do it kind of like they're wearing denim jeans. I'm sure they have denim jeans in 40k, but if not, I've done them completely wrong. So I'll see you in the next bit. So here we have the riders. I've put all the base coats on them. We've got Gilliman flesh, and I've done the shoulder pads in exactly the same way that I've done the fairings on the bike. These are their blue denim jeans. I think they look okay. I'm not 100% with them. I'm probably going to go back and make some changes. I will do some ink washing, etc. on the chains and the headpieces. Really impressed with the contrast Gilliman flesh. I think that's come out really well. There's a couple of bits of staining on the arms, but I'm actually going to take them up so that they're actually slightly lighter in their colours. These guys, spend most of their life in the hive, so it's not like they're going to have all over tans to show off. So yeah, I'm going to get these glued onto the bikes, and then obviously I'll run the ink washes and stuff over them, and then we can get some final pictures. And here we have the finished Goliath Mauler. I hope you enjoyed the video. I really enjoyed painting these. There's a few details that I've still got to finish, do some weathering, etc, etc. But for now I am calling him done.